try to click it. Click, 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 click. It just keeps running away, running away. Hey there, I'm Jack. Today, let's try to create a button that can never be clicked. What do I mean by that? Let's find out. So first of all, I need to create a button. And how do I create a button? We can do that using a function called createButton. And it's very much similar to create canvas. Let's write that, createButton. And inside of the parentheses, we can give whatever name we want to have or whatever label and text we want to have on the button. In this case, I'm going to write click me. So now, as you can see on the bottom left corner of our canvas, we have a button. And what exactly is this button? It's technically a HTML element, but what is HTML? If you click this arrow, you'll see that we have 3 files in our sketch. We have index.html, which is the hypertext markup language. That is a document that includes the main content and metadata for the web page, because p5 sketch essentially is lives on a web page. And then sketch.js is where our JavaScript, and in particular the p5.js script lives. And then style.js is where the styling information is stored. In our case, we have a fairly simple style sheet. That's which is the default one that comes with the sketch. So when we create a button, we're creating an HTML element. So we're adding a button to our HTML page, to our web page. And that lives right here. So how do we move it around? Or maybe before that, how do we adjust its size? So before we adjust the size, let's define what size we want it to be. Let's say button width, maybe 100 pixels, and we can, by default, the unit is pixels, so we can just say 100. And then similarly, button height, maybe something around 50. We can always adjust it later. And then if we want to adjust the size of the button, what we can do is to give button a name, or essentially a variable, so that we can store the button that we create inside of the variable, which will allow us to change different properties of the button. So let's call it button, and that creates a variable, and then button equals to create button. This way, the button that's created will be stored inside of this button variable. And now what we can do is button dot size to specify the width and height of the button. And since I've already created variables for the width and height, button height, I can just enter it right there. So now, as you can see, the button becomes bigger. And that's because I used the dot size to change the size of the button. So now we have a button and of customer size. So how do I move it around? In order to move it around, we can use a method of button that's called position. And as you can imagine, we would provide the x coordinate and y coordinate. So let's see, maybe 100 and 0. So notice how as soon as I start to use the position, the button goes all the way to the top. So when you specify a coordinate or a position for the button, p5 automatically use the relative position. You use a position that's relative to the top left corner of our canvas or of our page. So that is going to be always relative to the top left corner by default. So this is, this is pretty convenient. So now we can adjust it anywhere on our canvas. So remember, button is not a part of the canvas. It's a separate HTML element that we can move around. And right now it's on the top left, and we can click on it. Remember, we are going to make it unclickable. So for the time being, as we can see, this is a normal button that we can click. And then 20 moves the X, and then here it moves the Y. So now let's see how we can position the button at a random position. In order to do that, essentially, we can create a random position with a random function. So since I'm really only gonna have a button, so in this case, I'll just use X and Y without any descriptor. So X equals to random, let's say random width, meaning the smallest value for this random will produce is going to be 0, and the largest value is going to be width. Width is the width of the canvas. And then const y equals to random height. Yeah. So this is what happens when you only provide one variable, one argument for the random function. Yeah. We can also additionally we can provide 2, which will be the minimum, and then maximum. So in this case, if you have 1, that is going to be the maximum of value. So now instead of 0, 0, let's change this to X and Y. You see how every time we refresh, the button is going to be at a random location. But you see right now it actually goes outside the canvas. Maybe it doesn't matter, or maybe if you want to make sure that this button stays within the canvas, then what we can do is to make sure the maximum value, the maximum X is going to be width minus the button width, and then the maximum Y value is going to be height minus button height. This way, the button always stays on the canvas, if that's what you want to do. And technically, for this small program we are going to create, we don't even need the canvas. So if we remove, let's say we can even, because we don't really need canvas, we can write no canvas, because we're really just going to be focusing on the button. I'm going to delete the canvas part. So now we can't use width and height. Instead, what we can do is window width. And, oh, that's a typo. Window width. And window height. This way, it's going to create a random position within the window. And more specifically, it's this preview area of the window. And now, so that's a pretty good start. And let's save this button at random position. Yeah, and let's duplicate this and try to make it, so right now it's still very much clickable. So how do we make it unclickable? I think I also forgot to remove this, since we don't have a canvas, we don't need that draw function either. So now, what we can do is to add a function that will change the position of the button whenever our mouse hovers over the button, because we want the button to move away whenever the mouse get close, or whenever the mouse touches the button. And the way we do that is to where is the button? So over here we have the size. So now we can add a function. So button mouse over, and And this will be, you see there's an error. That's because mouse over requires a argument, and that argument needs to be a function that will be run when whenever this event, in this case whenever the mouse hovers over the button. So let's create a function for that. So this would be a function that says call move button. Let's call it move button. And then inside of the move button function, for now, let's simply add a console log, which will just to test that this function is working. So let's write hello. Yeah. Again, there's still errors because I have not provided the function for mouse over. So if I add this as an argument, and then when we run this, now there's no error. And whenever my mouse touches the button, this move button function runs, which will log a message in the console that says hello. So that works. Now what we need to do is to, whenever this function is called, what we want to do is to move the button to a random position. So what we can do really is to move this part of the code to here. So now whenever this function is called, the button is going to move at a random position. So let's start. So now the button starts at the top left, and let's try to click on it. Whenever our mouse hovers over the button, it runs away. Go, click me. Let's try to click it. Click. It just keeps running away. Yeah. So here you have it. We have a button that can never be clicked. And today this is a rather unusual experiment, as we didn't even use canvas. We didn't draw anything on canvas. We were manipulating this HTML element, but I hope you had fun, and I hope this gives you a lot of ideas to build like other kind of fun little projects. And thank you for watching, and please, if you make any projects out of this, please share it with me in the comment section, and I would love to check that out. So thank you.